everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. As most of you know, I've been spending the weekends across this past summer trying to improve the building, painting, and cleaning up things and that sort of thing. And this past weekend, one of the jobs on the job jar list was to empty this entire room out, which you've seen me in many of these videos, and repaint the floors. So we did that very thing, and it dried enough for us to put a couple of the heavy things back in place this weekend. But it is bright and early Monday morning, and basically this room is completely unusable, and stuff is stacked everywhere, and it's an absolute mess. So I am going to take the Monday morning at least, and as long as it takes actually, to try to put this stuff back in place so that I can go to work. And as far as work goes, we're just going to pick up where we left off last week. I'm wrapping the binding on mandolin number 3. We are kind of fiddling with the necks and making sure they're ready to go into the mandolins after the tops are bound. And we're also working on the backs. Most of the backs are carved on the inside, most of them, not all of them. And then we're going to carve the outsides down, and we still have to work on the top for mandolin number 4. So that's what we're going to be doing all week, and I'm going to carry the camera with me and take video of anything that seems to be interesting enough to take video of. So come along with me as we spend this week at Ratliff Mandolins. Do you remember all those peghead overlays I was working on last week? Well, I found a whole nother stack that needs to be worked down. So I guess I'm not done with peghead overlays. Hey, it's Tuesday morning, and believe it or not, I spent all day in here yesterday rearranging stuff and bringing it back in, cleaning it and doing all that. And before I knew it, my students showed up at 5 o'clock. It was an all-day event, although I realize it doesn't look like it much. And speaking of students, one of them left me a mandolin to fix a high fret on. Supposed to come and pick it back up this afternoon, so I'm going to go ahead and work on that first thing this morning before I move into the big room and address those peghead overlays that I found, and regular production stuff like the binding on mandolin number 3 and carving those back so that they'll be ready for the mandolins when the time comes to glue them on. So that's going to be my day today. Well, we have a successful fret leveling, and there are no more buzzes in this mandolin. And now I'll move into the big room here. Mandolin number 3 just needs one more piece of binding glued on, and it'll have all of that binding glued, and it'll be ready to clean up and put the neck in. So I'm going to start right there, and then we'll probably go to backs for the rest of the day. Well, there we go. Number 3 has its final piece of binding glued on, and that's all I can do for the day. So I think we'll go right over here to those peghead overlays and see about them before we start the backs. And there are some spectacular, gorgeous pieces in this. And what I'm going to do, I think, is my procedure for the last batch was I sanded everything down to a even gluable thickness and glued them together, and then done my final sanding after these halves were glued together. And so I think I'll take the next hour or so and just sand these things and get them all kind of even where I can glue them up, and then we'll do that sanding sometime next week after all these are done. Okay, they are all sanded down to about 95 thousandths, give or take. And I have the first one glued up, and we're going to glue them up at that thickness. And then after they're cured, then we'll sand them all down to the final thickness of right around 65 or 70 thousandths. So looks like there's going to be about 17 that comes out of that batch, that big stack that I had. And so we're doing pretty well. And so now we'll move on to the backs. It is Wednesday morning, and the first thing on the job jar list for today is to clean up mandolin number 3. If you'll recall, we put the last piece of binding on it, and so now it is time to clean up all the excess glue, squeeze out, and do any kind of final shaping, and basically do whatever needs to be done to get it ready to put the neck in. And then I'm going to do that, put mandolin number 3 back in its box, and replace it on the binding station with the next mandolin in line, which unfortunately is not mandolin number 4 because I don't have the top card for it yet. It'll be mandolin number 5, which is a country boy with tortoiseshell binding, so that'll be something different. And then after I get the first piece of binding wrapped on mandolin number 5, then we'll move on to the other jobs, which will be probably gluing up one more of those headstock veneers, and then we'll move on to the vacs, and because we'll be needing those pretty soon, I think. So that's the job jar list for today. I'm going to get started. I don't know how much of this you want to watch. It's going to be a couple hours at least of just plain old dull sitting here with a piece of sandpaper scratching on this mandolin. But like I said just a second ago, we need to get all of the wood down to the black binding even and smooth on the top and on the sides where any glue squeeze out come along. So it's going to be a couple of boring hours.
And here is mandolin number 5 with the first piece of binding glued on. Now I'm going to take this peghead veneer out of this glue and jig and replace it with one from this stack, and then move on to these backs right here. Now I'm carving the inside and getting the inside clean, and then I will work on the outsides, and then they'll be ready to glue on. Now it is Thursday, and I think that today's diary entry is not going to change very much from yesterday. We're going to start out with me gluing the next piece of binding on mandolin number 5. Although it won't just be one piece of binding here, we'll be able to glue this one and this one right here at the same time. So I'll actually get 2 pieces of binding glued on mandolin number 5, and then I'll go over to the peghead overlays. And I've already got 2 of them glued up and a third one in the jig. I'll take this one out, replace that before I start in on the backs. And yesterday I did get all of the insides cleaned out on all of the backs that I have rough sawn out. So today I will be doing something new. I'll be working on carving the outsides down, and I'll take some video of that so you can kind of see the processes and the steps that happen there. And so that's my day. Let's get started. Now I have already wrapped the binding on mandolin number 5, and I have glued up one piece of the peghead overlay. So we're going to start on the backs, and I'm going to take just a second to explain to you what we're doing. Like I said, I've already cleaned up all of the insides of the back, so the insides are ready. Now we're going to work on the outside. And I'm going to draw just a straight across head-on shot of that board right there. We're just going to view it exactly from the side, like that. And we've got the inside bowled out. Just like that. Now I'm going to take a drill press, and I have an attachment to this drill press. It comes up like that. Like that. Bolts onto the drill press table. And I'm going to set this thing down in there. Set the depth of the drill bit to about right here and drill a hole right down to that. So I'm going to have a rough thickness. I'm going to make it heavy, but I'm going to have a rough thickness of where I want how thick this thing to be right in the middle. Then we're going to take I'm going to do all of the backs that way with 1 or 2 holes down through here. Right, straight down the seam of the glue joint in the middle. And then I'm going to take it to the planer, and I'm going to plane that board down until I hit the bottom of that hole. So I will at least have right here in the middle a rough thickness, and that it'll probably be a 1/4 of an inch, or just a tad more will be where we want to stop right there. That's a lot thicker than the final thickness, so that's how we're going to do that. So that's what you're going to watch right next, is me drilling holes in each of these backs, and then we're going to run that through the planer so that we can get at least right there in that one area a rough thickness of pretty close to the final thickness. Here's the depth stop thing I was telling you about. It's sort of a wooden pyramid with a handle on it and a T-nut and an attachment thing there to hold it on the table. A little piece of leather glued right there, and we'll set that up so that this drill bit comes down to the appropriate depth, which will be just a tad over 1/4 of an inch. I said a tad over 1/4 of an inch, but actually I made this 19/64. And now I'm going to drill the outside and pretty much the deepest part of the inside. Just like that right there. Here we go. And now I'm going to run this through the planer to plane it down to that thickness. And I'll know that I'm roughly where I want to be, right, at least in that one spot. Now I'm going to go ahead and drill all of them, so this will take a little while, and then we'll run them through the planer. It is now Friday morning. Today is going to be pretty much a carbon copy of yesterday. I'm going to start by wrapping one piece of binding on mandolin number 5, and then I'm going to glue up book matched peghead veneer. Then I'm going to start on the backs. I did get them all planed down to the depth of the deepest part in the center yesterday. So today I'm going to drill holes all through here, same depth, so that I can at least rough the shape down, and then we'll go back with finer and finer measurements and everything and kind of ease it into the final shape. But today all we're going to be interested in is
just getting them roughed out, and I won't get done today. There's just not enough time to do all those backs to get them drilled and carved down today. But that's where we're going to start anyway, and I'll show you one of them after it's all drilled so you understand what I'm talking about. Well, this is what they look like at this step and this stage of the game. I've got 17 of them to do, and so that's going to take up the rest of my day. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of the video, and check back with me next week for the next episode of the Ratliff Mandolins Weekly Production Diary. Hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you then.